Hello friends, in the last lecture we have studied that petroleum is derived from biogenic origin. So next question comes in our mind, what are the biogenic elements which are involved? Like as for the biota is concerned, on our planet we can divide the biota in two major category. One we call it as sea, and another is the plant which are growing on the land. Okay, so we have the plants, sea plants, and the land plants, which we call it as terrestrial plant. Okay, so as the land plant, they grow on the land, and they dies on the land. When they die on the land, they does not have sufficient time to get isolated from oxygenated environment. So because of the presence of oxygen, they decay as such. Okay, so these land plant does not have much role in the generation of hydrocarbon, whereas the sea plants, which we call it as phytoplanktons, zooplanktons, and algae. These are the major contributor for the generation of hydrocarbon or petroleum. That means if we see in terms of environment, the land environment does not contribute much. Similarly, the land plant does not contribute much, and the sea environment or marine environment or closed environment contribute the maximum, and similarly the marine plants or marine organism, they contribute maximum for the generation of hydrocarbon. Okay, next question come in our mind, if water body is required for generation of petroleum, so what are the different water bodies which we expect on the earth's surface? So on the land we have rivers and ponds. Okay, and if we move towards the coastal area, we have deltic terrain, and we have lagoons and open sea. These are different water body which is expected to have conditions for generation of hydrocarbon. Okay, since we have already discussed, if we are dealing with the land, on land we do not have much preservation potential, but in river, in river water used to flow continuously. That means water does not have any stagnant nature, whereas in pond the water is stagnant, and relatively they have less what we call it as high organic productivity, but in ponds we do not have much of the nutrients and water circulation. So what happens in ponds, they are quite good candidate. As for the environment is concerned, the ponds are good candidate for preservation. The ponds are good candidate for preservation, but they do not have much of the organic matter and much of very high biological productivity. So we cannot have we cannot expect commercial or major fields associated with the ponds. Next we come from the deltic terrain. In deltic terrain what happens, we have the organic matter derived from the land, also derived from land, and some of the organic matter which is in situ generated, in situ. And these land derived and in situ generated, both of them contribute in the generation generation of hydrocarbons. But the major drawback is the land derived organism or land derived material does not contribute much in the liquid hydrocarbon. It contribute more towards the gaseous hydrocarbon. And one major backdrop we associated with the land derived material is they are having higher amount of inorganic components like nitrogen, carbon dioxide, sulfur and phosphorus. As we have already discussed in our first class that these elements are not desired, they reduces the calorific value of hydrocarbon. The leftover is lagoon and open ocean. In open ocean what happens, in open ocean we have a lot of phytoplanktons which are floating, and when these floating phytoplankton they start settle down to the ocean bottom. Since they settle down, because of very high depth of ocean, they get a lot of time to decay. Suppose this is some ocean bottom, and here the planktons are dying. They die and slowly they settle down. Okay. So what happens, because though in water environment the oxygen supply is less, but they are getting long time for exposure. And this long time exposure may lead to decay, and hence decay of the organic matter, and hence it reduces the productivity, reduces the hydrocarbon productivity. Whereas the next one was lagoon. What is lagoon? Lagoon is basically a restricted water body. Lagoon is basically a restricted water body which is associated with open sea, and they are restricted by some bars and barriers. Okay, sandbar and sand barrier that you will study in sedimentology classes. So over here what happens, lagoon is the best suited area for petroleum generation, for higher productivity of petroleum, because it has very shallow depth. They have all the biota, phytoplankton, zooplankton and algae which is present in the open ocean. They are present over here. They have very high biological productivity, and the nutrient supply is also high. The oxygen and nutrient supply, both these things are very high in the lagoons. So the biological productivity is very high in this region, and hence since the biological productivity is very high, they decay on the surface and settle down in the bottom. And over here we can see the depth of water bottom is not much, and since the depth of bottom water is not much, the preservation potential seems to be very high. Okay, this is all about what are the depositional environment, water rich depositional environment where we can expect the presence of hydrocarbon. Okay, so next question come, these are the geological situations where we can expect. But apart from these geological, based on the observations, these observations which I just right now discussed, these are few points which has been derived that these are the essential condition which leads to generation of which enhances the generation of hydrocarbon from a particular source rock. First is chemically inactive environment. Chemically inactive environment, that means the environment should not be very active. If the environment is like acidic, acid rich, or more of the alkaline, then what happens, they enhance the dissolution of cell wall of the organism, and will ultimately lead to decay of organism. And if organism decays, then we will not get generation of hydrocarbon as such. Okay, so we need if we have siliceous test of the organisms, or say the organism which has silica rich shales, then what we should avoid the acidic environment. Okay, and similarly if it is carbonate rich, also in the acidic environment they dissolve. So we should avoid, there should not be very chemically active environment. Okay, the second point is, apart from this, the environment should be reducing environment. Since this reducing environment, there is two type of environment which we used to discuss in the sedimentology also. We call it as high energy environment and low energy environment. Okay, high energy environment usually lead to generation of coarse grain sediment, whereas low energy environment lead to generation of fine grained sediment. Okay, in general this high energy environment is referred as oxidizing environment, because in high energy environment we get coarse grain sediment such as sandstone, then conglomerate, breccia, siltstone. They are coarser, and when the organic matter is deposited with this high energy condition, then what happens, we have the coarse grain, suppose sand, in between we get the organic matter. This is organic matter. Okay, what happens if this sand gets compacted and it forms a rock? Even after this sand has some porosity, what we call it as effective porosity or interconnected porosity, through which the air can come. Air can enter to the system and lead to decay of these organic matter. Okay, so we don't get any formation of like if we have oxidizing or high energy environment, still we do not get any preservation because of this reason. Whereas if we have low energy environment, usually enhance the formation of fine grained sediment such as shale, or clay stone, and this shale and clay, they have platy and flaky minerals. They have platy and flaky minerals. So when the deposition takes place, they rapidly isolate the organic matter. The organic matter in general, they adhere to the platy minerals of clay. These are the organic matters, and these are the clay flakes. They rapidly isolate the organic matter from the atmospheric oxygen, and because of the isolation from the atmospheric oxygen with increasing temperature and pressure, they lead to generation of hydrocarbon. That's why the reducing environment is very well suited for the generation of hydrocarbon. Next is absence of scavenger. Scavengers are those organisms which eats the dyed material or other organism. So if there is presence of any scavenger, what do? They eat the dyed material. They eat the dyed plant, dead plant and animal, and when they eat the dead plant and animal, then there is no point of generation of hydrocarbon, because as we know, for generation of hydrocarbon, what do we require? We require the presence of organism. They after death, they buried beneath the subsurface, and they lead to generation of hydrocarbon. As we have already discussed, anoxic condition along with the reducing environment. That means if oxygen is there, it will lead to decay. So we require the anoxic condition. And this next thing is rapid burial and low kinetic energy. Rapid burial is also an important aspect, because if there is very slow sedimentation in the basin, that will not help, that will reduces the preservation potential. Okay, if there is rapid burial, it will enhance the preservation potential. And low kinetic energy, that we have already discussed. The lowest kinetic energy we usually get in large lakes and ponds. They have very low kinetic energy, because we don't have much water supply from the other area. They have the low kinetic energy, but the disadvantage with pond and lake is they do not have much of the biological productivity. So though they generate some of the hydrocarbon beneath the basin, but they do not have the commerciality. They generate whatever the organic matter is there, they generate some amount of hydrocarbon, but that does not have commercial viability. So this is all about our depositional environment. What depositional environment is required for generation of hydrocarbon from the biotic content. First is chemically inactive environment, then we should have lack of scavenger, anoxic condition, rapid burial, and very low kinetic energy. These are the preferred geological condition which are required for generation of hydrocarbon. Next come if we have all these situations, then what are the stages which are involved for the conversion of this organic matter into hydrocarbon? For that, there is several scientists who have studied and analyzed. There are several scientists who have their own observation, and what they say, this for the transformation of organic matter into petroleum, there are several theory which has been proposed for the transformation. The first theory which was proposed was radioactive radiation. So it has been seen that by several scientists, it has been seen that when the organic matter is subjected to radioactive radiation, the organic matter gets converted into methane and hydrogen. Not exactly methane, methane plus other higher molecule also. So what we can say, hydrocarbon plus hydrogen. This has been seen practically in the lab. When organic matter is subjected to radioactive radiation, they lead to generation of hydrocarbon and hydrogen. This was one theory which was proposed by scientists for the transformation of organic matter into hydrocarbon. But this theory seems to be not valid, because along with hydrocarbon we never get equal amount of hydrogen which is being produced, or we don't get any hydrogen which is associated with any hydrocarbon trap. So this theory was discarded. The second theory came into the mind of different scientists was clay catalyst or clay. This in general in oil refineries, clay is used as catalyst. Clay is used as catalyst which break the heavy molecules, heavy chain molecules to the smaller chain hydrocarbon. Okay, long chain hydrocarbon to smaller chain hydrocarbon. The breaking or the catalyst, clay catalyst, is used to break long chain hydrocarbon to small chain hydrocarbon in oil refineries. So one theory was proposed that since with the source rock in general we have a lot of clay, and these clay can act as catalyst for the generation of hydrocarbon from the organic matter. But when it was experimented with the organic material, raw organic material, this theory again failed, and we don't have that much of the clay which can help for the generation of large volume of hydrocarbon. Then one theory came in existence, bacterial action. Since we have seen that nowadays we have biogenic gas, or broadly you can say like gobar gas. In our day-to-day life people uses gobar gas, and that is kind of bacterial action. What happens, the bacteria eat the death and decay material. There are certain bacteria, they eat the dead material, they eat the dead material and they generate methane. Okay, and that we call as biogenic gas, but that is not the thermogenic gas which we are exploiting from the from different basins. Okay, so if the bacterial action is responsible for the generation of hydrocarbon, then where are other component? We are getting only methane. We are not getting ethane, propane, butane and other cycloalkanes and aromatics. We are not getting associated all those gases. So this theory was also discarded. Then finally the most accepted till now theory come, which we call it as burial theory. Burial theory, that means the organic matter gets buried. Beneath the earth surface, and with increasing temperature there is formation of hydrocarbon. So what are the material which is present in the organic matter, when it dies, they are some biopolymers which we call it as carbonate, sorry, not carbonate, carbohydrate. This is carbohydrate, carbohydrates, protein, protein, protein and lipids. Okay, these carbohydrate, protein and lipids, they are the biopolymers. These biopolymers are, as you know, what are biopolymers? Biopolymers are the compound which is having mainly carbon, oxygen and hydrogen. They are long chain complex structure with a systematic geometry. When they buried beneath the earth's surface with increasing pressure and temperature, they gets converted into geopolymer. They gets converted into geopolymer. The next question come, out of carbohydrate, protein and lipids, which one break first? So a carbohydrate break first, after that protein, and at last there is the lipid which used to get converted into geopolymer or the hydrocarbon. Later on the geopolymer gets converted into, with increasing temperature and pressure, they gets converted into kerosene and bitumen. Bitumens. These kerosene and bitumens, kerosene form around 90% of the organic matter and bitumen form the 10%. As we know, bitumens are the solid form of hydrocarbons. These bitumens usually dissolve in organic solvent. They dissolve in organic solvent like CCl4. They dissolve in organic solvent, and the kerosene does not dissolve in organic solvent. Okay, so this kerosene, after further what we call increasing temperature and pressure, they are converted into oil and natural gas, and when further increase in temperature and pressure goes on, they gets converted into graphite. The organic matter used to gets converted into graphite. The similar thing we can see in this flow diagram, sorry, in this flow chart, the similar thing we can see, these are the living organic. What happens here? These are the living organisms which after death, and these are the living organisms which are having the main component, main biological component which remains after decay of the material, that is lignin, carbohydrate, protein and lipid. These biopolymers, after microbial degradation, polymerization and condensation during diagenesis, diagenesis means increasing pressure and temperature and depth of burial, they gets converted into fulvic acid, humic acid and humine. That is nothing but the geopolymer which I just discussed now. Then this geopolymer further gets converted into kerosene during diagenesis stage itself. Up to here we have the diagenesis stage. When this geopolymer gets converted into kerosene, some part of there is bitumens also, that finally gets that used to form asphalt over there. Okay, then further thermal degradation of these material leads to generation of crude oil in catagenetic stage, and in this catagenetic stage the thermal cracking also takes place, which leads to formation of natural gas, and after that in the metamorphic stage we get residue carbon or the graphite. Okay, so broadly the entire the depth wise it has been categorized into diagenetic stage, catagenetic stage, metagenetic stage, and at last it is metamorphic stage. Okay, so what happened in general, the diagenetic stage is up to 50 to 60 degree temperature. This is up to 50 to 60 degree temperature. That means what will be the depth? If we take the geothermal gradient around 25 degree per kilometer, then this depth will be around 2 kilometer. Up to 2 kilometer depth we are having the diagenetic stage. After this, the catagenetic stage goes up to 150 to 160 degree Celsius. This 150 to 160 degree Celsius, that means around 5 kilometer. And below that we have the metagenetic stage that lost up to 220 to 30 degree Celsius, and below that the metamorphism start, which you will study in metamorphic classes. You must be knowing what is the temperature, what is the first form phases in metamorphism. So I am not going to discuss about the metamorphic over here. So this is how this is the conversion of organic matter into hydrocarbon. What are the different stages which are responsible for the conversion of organic matter into hydrocarbon? The same thing if we see in terms of generation of different gaseous material. So over here we can see this is depth, and over here different processes are mentioned. This is diagenesis, this is catagenesis, this is metagenesis, and below that we have the metamorphic. Okay, so what happens in the initial stage at near the surface? There is generation of biochemical gases. These biochemical gases is nothing, they are biogenic gases. They are biogenic gases which are derived by bacterial action. Which are derived by bacterial action. Which are derived by bacterial action, and they in general have methane. They in general dominantly they have methane. Apart from methane, they have little amount of oxygen, water and carbon dioxide. Okay, because they are just degradation of organic matter. The bacteria, they attach to the dead organic matter, they digest the organic matter and they releases different gases, and that gases are the biogenic gases. Okay, and when the temperature increases further below, we goes in the zone of oil window. After that, this is the oil zone, the purple color, this is oil zone, and after that after the catagenetic stage we get a zone of dry gas. Okay, which we call it as natural gas. It is again dominantly it has methane. After that metagenetic stage, over there we get the graphite. Okay, so you can see here we have the gas zones, and over here also we have some gases which are present with the oil. These gases are known as wet gas. They are known as wet gases, and this zone is known as oil window and this zone is known as gas window. So what will be the definition for oil window? Oil window is a zone beneath the earth's surface which is ranging from 2000 km to 5000 km around, and having the peak generation of hydrocarbon or peak generation of liquid hydrocarbon. That is known as this is how the transformation of organic matter into hydrocarbon took place. Okay, as for the this conversion is concerned, in the last class we discussed about how much time to take place in the conversion of these organic matter in the last class we have already discussed that how if we have, there is a temperature window in each basin which is responsible for the formation of hydrocarbon. If we have age with respect to temperature, this we have already discussed. So if we have the older, this is the temperature window in which we get the generation of temperature window in which we get the generation of hydrocarbon. Okay, so if we have recent rock, usually it takes very high temperature to convert organic matter into hydrocarbon. Okay, and if we have the old rock, it require very low temperature for generation of organic matter, for conversion of organic matter into hydrocarbon. That means low temperature in old rock means not Proterozoic, Paleozoic and Mesozoic. The Paleozoic and Mesozoic rock, they can generate hydrocarbon at low temperature. Okay, and for Cenozoic rock, for the higher temperature we need, if we are dealing with the Cenozoic rocks, and even more higher temperature is required when we are dealing with the more Pleistocene or recent rock. That means the temperature and time, they are having inverse relationship. If we provide more temperature, then we need lesser time. Okay, and if time is more, we require lesser temperature for the generation of hydrocarbon. So this is about the what is hydrocarbon, how they form, what is their occurrences, what are their origins. Now what are the key component which we usually analyze in the petroleum geology. In petroleum geology we usually analyze these 7 key component. What are these 7 key component? First is source, then reservoir, then seal, trap, maturation, migration, and the timing of migration. These are the elements which any petroleum geologist need to analyze very meticulously to understand petroleum geology. Okay, 1 minute. So first one is source. Okay, as we have already discussed that what are the main sources for the generation of hydrocarbon. During the discussion of depositional environment, we have discussed that we have shale, we have sandstone. These shale, they are rich in clay minerals. Okay, and they help in the generation of hydrocarbon because they are formed, they used to form in the reducing environment, low energy condition, whereas sandstone they form in high energy condition. If they have the organic matter, they used to oxidize and they does not left with anything. But this sandstone, they have very good porosity, so they act as reservoir rock, and whatever hydrocarbon is being generated, they are getting expelled and they goes to they used to preserve in the sandstones. Okay, so this shale and some carbonate and carbonate mud, they act as good source rock because they are fine grained and they have optimal conditions for the generation of hydrocarbon. This reservoir rock is basically in general sandstone, whatever rock in general it is sandstone, but other rock which is having porosity like fractured rock or vuggy porosity rock in the carbonates, they act as reservoir rock. Then seal. What is seal? Seal is basically, as the name indicates, it is imporous impermeable layer, imporous and impermeable layer, which is present above the reservoir rock to trap the hydrocarbon, because since the reservoir rock is porous and permeable, so the hydrocarbon will migrate from the pore spaces in the upward direction and will escape on the surface. To restrict the movement of hydrocarbon, what do we need? We need some imporous impermeable material in the migration path of hydrocarbon. That imporous and impermeable material, we call it as seal. Okay, so what are these imporous and impermeable material? In general, evaporite is the best seal rock, but in general we don't have much abundance of evaporite, so usually our shale itself act as seal in most of the cases. Trap is a geological construction which is having ability to trap migrating hydrocarbon. Okay, then next come maturation. Maturation is the process of, as we have already discussed, the burial process. So maturation is a time window in which the hydrocarbon gets mature. Then migration and timing of migration. What is the time? The time is before the formation of trap or after the formation of trap. If the migration of hydrocarbon is before the formation of trap, then it will not get trapped into trap. If the migration is after the formation of trap, then the hydrocarbon will accumulate in the trap. So all these points we will discuss in detail one by one. First is source rock. In general, when we are dealing with any sedimentary basin, we have the source, we have the organic matter. Suppose it is a phytoplankton or death material. Any organic matter has different fate. Okay, there can be hard component of the body, or there can be colloidal dissolved organic matter, or there can be dissolved organic matter. Okay, colloidal organic matter, not exactly dissolved. Colloidal doesn't mean dissolved. There can be colloidal organic matter, dissolved organic matter, and particulate organic matter. Okay, so this hard part of the organism, it does not contribute anything, because if it is hair plant, then it will be bone or something, hair or animal, then it will be bone or something. It does not contribute. The colloidal organic matter, they flocculate and usually get deposited in the basin floor. Similarly, the dissolved organic matter, when the clay flakes are there, they are getting deposited. Clay flakes, they are negatively charged and they attract the organic matter on the surface of these clay particle, and they get deposited. The organic matter, dissolved organic matter get deposited, get settled down along the flakes of organic matter, and the particulate matter, they settle down, and these three components contribute in the formation of organic matter. Okay, based on the formation of petroleum. Based on this study, the source rock has been classified into different type based on what is their origin or mode of origin. Type that we call it as different kerogen. What is kerogen? We have already discussed. During the maturation, they are complex organic compound which is rich in carbon and oxygen, and they carbon and hydrogen, and they are the basic building block for any protopetroleum. They are an essential element of a protopetroleum. Okay, so we have divided the source rock, or the source rock into different category based on their generation potential, their organic content, and their origin. What is their origin? So type 1 kerogen, type 2 kerogen, and type 3 kerogen. Okay, so type 1 kerogen is also known as sapropelic kerogen. That means they are also known as amorphous kerogen. They don't have any specific geometry or shape, and usually this type of kerogen, they have this type of source rock. This type of source rock are having kerogen minerals, which we call it as alginite. ALGI. They have alginite mineral, and since the alginite is generated, algae is more abundant in marine environment, so they directly refers to marine environment. That means the kerogen 1 is known as sapropelic, and they are derived in marine environment. They are marine in nature, and they are having excellent probability of generation of liquid hydrocarbon. Around 70% of the kerogen gets converted into liquid hydrocarbon, and in this mainly we get the paraffin. As we have already discussed about paraffin, in paraffin we have the C1 to C5, the C1 to C5 we have gaseous, above C5 to C16 we have liquid hydrocarbon, that we have already discussed, and this paraffin is what we call it as the best hydrocarbon which we usually get. The hydrogen and carbon ratio in such kerogen is ranges between 1.4 to 1.8. So as for their type 1 source rock, their depositional environment, what is their depositional environment? They used to deposit it in marine environment, and they are rich in paraffins, and they have the highest generation potential of hydrocarbon from the source rock. Okay, they are algal material. Then next come type 2 kerogen. They are herbaceous. They are known as herbaceous. The material within them is herbaceous, but the kerogen in the minerals which is present, mineral is nothing but like mineral for a rock. Similarly, mineral is for the kerogen. Mineral is basic building unit of any kerogen or organic matter. Okay, so in type 2 we have different what we call it as minerals, what we call lignin. Over here we have different type of minerals for type 2 source rock: euxenite, cutinite, resinite, and leptinite. These are different these are different type of minerals which are present in the type 2 source rock, and euxenite is generated from the pollen source, pollen grain, because the pollen, if some of you must have studied the biology, pollens are basically the circular, which are circular thing, pollen and spore. They are the reproductive organ of male flower, and they are bounded by two layer, and the outer layer of this is known as made up of known as exene. Okay, the name has been derived from that, the exenite, the pollen and spore. Okay, and similarly cutinite, the the outer body of the land part is known as cuticle. The stem is covered, the stem of any land part is covered by cuticle. The name has been derived from there, cutinite. Similarly ragine, as the name indicates, ragine is the derived product from the land plant, so the name comes resinite. And liptinite, as we know, this is lipid, and that can be derived from the land part as well as marine alga. That means, as we have already discussed, that type 1 source rock is mainly marine. Type 1 source rock is mainly marine. Okay, whereas type 2 source rock is having both nature, marine plus terrestrial. Okay, the minerals present in these rocks, they indicate both nature, terrestrial as well as marine. When we move and if we see the generation potential, these type 2, these source rock are having generation potential around 40 to 50%. That means they generate around 40 to 50% oil, other are gas. They are having medium size alkane with some amount of cyclo component. They also have cyclo component, cycloalkanes, what we call. They have cycloalkane, and H by C ratio is 1.5 to 1 to 1.4. Okay. Next come type 3 corrosion. In type 3 corrosion, the main mineral is vitrinite, and this vitrinite is usually or essentially associated with higher plant. They are essentially associated with higher plant. That's why such type of material is known as woody material. Sometimes we call it as coal, but in some book you will find classification like type 4 corrosion, they are known as coal. They are known as coal, whereas type 3 is known as woody material, and this coal is coal material type 4 coal, they are characterized by inertinite mineral. They are characterized by inertinite mineral. So and this type 3, which is woody in nature, they are gas, they used to generate higher amount of gas. Okay, they do not generate much of the what we call it as liquid hydrocarbon. They only generate gas, and they are rich in inorganic component also. Inorganic component also, such as nitrogen, carbon dioxide, sulfur, etc. Okay, so they are rich in inorganic component, so they are not very good as for the generation, as for the potential in term of liquid hydrocarbon is concerned. They are having aromatic, their chemistry is more of aromatic. Their chemistry is more of aromatic, and they have H by C value 1 to 1 ranging from 0.4 to 1, and as we have already discussed, they are from the terrestrial origin. Okay, so if we see the plot of different type of type 1 source rock, type 2 source rock, type 3 source rock, and type 4 source rock, and this is their H by C ratio and O by C ratio, and this is how we used to classify the different type of source rock based on their generation potential. Over here you can see in inertinite we have only generation of water and carbon dioxide. We don't get any generation of what we call it as gases. In the last phase we get only generation of gases. This color coding indicates this is carbon dioxide plus water, and this green color is for oil, and this red color is for gas. Usually this is the standard practice that gas is denoted by red color and this green color is denoted by oil. So this is how what is the generation potential of different source material. The similar plot is over here. There is not much to explain. The same plot has been plotted on a different angle. Only over here we have shown different stages. This stage is our metagenetic stage. This is our all window zone, and above that we have the diagenetic stage. Only the addition of that is only catagenetic, metagenetic and diagenetic stages. All other things we have discussed, and this diagram is known as von Crevillon diagram. And this diagram is very essential when we are dealing with the source rock analysis or type of source rock. Okay, so with this I would like to close this lecture, and a further detail about the source rock we will deal how we evaluate the source rock, what are the parameters we take for evaluation of source rock, and how do we measure this O by C and H by ratio. These things we will discuss in the next class. With this I would like to thank you all for watching the video. Thank you.